Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the largest invasion of a neighboring country in Europe since World War II. The Russian military attacking from the south, the north, the east, taking out military installations and moving closer tonight on strategic cities.
According to the latest data, what work we have ahead, according to latest data, around 311 bridges, around 25,000 kilometers of municipal roads were damaged due to war. For instance, the beginning of Russia war against Ukraine, around 15,000 apartments, 15,000, more than 100,000 private houses, 400 enterprises, 18 civilian airports, 800 kindergartens, 40,000 agricultural machinery, 2,000 shops, 700 fertility facilities, around 1,000 healthcare facilities, and others. So there was damage, destroyed and damaged, and the only one of the ways in this infrastructure that can be
everyone. After a long break, it's my pleasure to be back, and P3 World Council is glad to bring back the stakeholder outreach initiative that we had stopped during the COVID time. And after COVID, indeed, we did reach out to different parts of the world to understand how different economies are coping up with the impact of COVID. Well, today, our country of focus is something that has been a highlight of the year 2022. And I'm talking about Ukraine. We've all seen the images of how this war has had an impact on different aspects of Ukraine. And when we think about the impact, certainly one thing that comes to our mind is to understand how has been the impact on different projects that were operational in Ukraine before the war broke out. And to discuss with me today, we have with us the director of the Ukrainian PPP Agency. His name is Mr. Niko Gachechyladze. I'm sorry for the pronunciation of the last name, but I'll call him Niko. And Niko is the director of the Ukrainian PPP Agency. So before I begin with our interaction, let me give you a brief introduction of Niko. Niko has more than 5 years of experience with PPPs development in Ukraine. He has graduated from the Economics Faculty of Kyiv National Economics University with a Master of Economics. In 2021, he became a certified PPP professional. For the last 2 years, Niko has been working as a director of the PPP Agency in Ukraine. His main responsibilities as the director of the PPP Agency are management and coordination of all issues that are necessary for the preparation for the implementation of PPP projects in Ukraine. He also has been part of the working groups, which has been responsible for coordination on reforming concession legislation and adaptation of PPP mechanism for post-war reconstruction in Ukraine. So Niko, welcome to the Stakeholder Engagement Initiative of P3 World Council. We are glad to have you for this conversation.
Thank you. It's very nice to hear such great words from you.
All right. Niko, my first question to you, I mean, just as I described, and I'm reading out to your biography as well, what I want to understand is what has been the overall impact of the Russia-Ukraine conflict on the overall PPP projects in Ukraine? If you can give a brief overview about the same.
Overall impact from the PPP project?
Yes.
Okay, let's maybe start from the beginning. From 2017, Ukraine has been systematically working to ensure the best approach in the implementation of the PPP projects, which will be in line with best international practices. Government of Ukraine has made one of the priorities for attracting investments in the development of infrastructure while focusing mostly on the PPP mechanism. An important step in the development of the PPP framework in Ukraine has been the creation of the new legislation. This includes the preparation and adoption of the new concession law in 2019, together with all necessary secondary legislation, around 10 legislative acts. New methodological recommendations for the preparation of the PPP projects will cover all the stages starting from the PPP initiation to PPP investment decision.
Okay.
Also, it was noting that development of the electronic trading system that will help to conduct PPP tenders digitally. And last but not least, the amendments to the budget code that will allow public sites to take long-term obligations, financial obligations, during the PPP conduction of the PPP projects. Our team, with the support of the ministries and IFIs, tried to work simultaneously to achieve proper level of PPP framework in order for private investors to have interest in the Ukrainian market. Coming back to the project, before war, our team has been working with different stakeholders, in partnership with different stakeholders, on more than 20 projects on different stages. For example, we have a very big potential in ports projects, in transport infrastructure projects, including port projects, concession projects of ferry and container terminals in Chernomorsk port, which was already in the stage of the feasibility study, but haven't been finished due to the start of the war, and was planned for tendering this year, just around the time. Concession projects in seaports of Gdansk and Izmail, as well as passenger complex, as well as concession of the passenger complex in seaport of Odessa. It's more projects, not such big as Chernomorsk seaport, but still very interesting, and the potential we had big potential. One of them was unsolicited proposal, but still we were interesting because it was one of the priorities for our government. There were also a very big program with support of UBAD and IT, road program, which consists of 6 pilot projects for around $2 billion. Ministry of Infrastructure have chosen 2 pilot projects. It's a road from Lutsk to Polish border in the western part of Ukraine, and Kharkiv, Zaporizhia in the eastern part of Ukraine, just like near the active war zone now.
Okay.
Moreover, we have our team have seen great perspective in the support of the regional project, because they have great potential for multiplication. For example, a concession project for the construction of the underground parking in Lviv, which can be multiplicated in all big cities, and really now today it can be also be as a for shelter, used for shelter during today's circumstances. And 2 projects in field of healthcare. One of them is a hospital, and second is development of diagnostics and laboratory services on the basis of the public facilities. Unfortunately, the war put practically on hold all the projects, and probably most of them will need a lot of work after the situation will be. Also, it was noticing that Russian aggression has been destroying infrastructure, and powers of it still being regulated by the PPP contract. The breakout of the military armed conflict may be classified as a force majeure depending on the legal framework of the country and specific contract clauses. Whatever the case, the state finds itself in the position to face additional liabilities which go from now from low to inexistent user demand in the best scenario, and decrease to maintenance costs, to penalties from the forced closure of the contract, and to finally complete the loss of production. So the Ukrainian government at the present finds itself in the position to have lost two large concession projects that were prepared in very good and successful cooperation with ABSD and AFC of the concession project in portfolio in Kherson. The winner was the Olvia was Q Terminals, the Qatar company, which has made the tender, and the Kherson Support, the winner of the tender, was as well Kherson. It's a Swiss and Georgian company. So both of the supports is, one of this is on occupied territory, the second one is near the occupied territory. So unfortunately, the Ministry of Infrastructure confirms the occurrence of the political force majeure event according to the concession agreement on the Kherson and Olvia support project. Following the occurrence of the political force majeure event, if the grantor doesn't succeed in remedying such political force majeure event within 1 year, the date of its recipient notice by the grantor, the concessionaire shall be entitled to terminate concession agreement and to receive compensation. Circumstances of the political force majeure will operate from 24th of February until the official end of the official termination of the martial law. Anyway, based on my opinion, this shows that the Ukraine, as the state, is ready to pull its obligations even when it's very hard for it, and can be a reliable partner in future, even in such strange and hard situation.
Understand. So, Niko, I mean, your country, I mean, has witnessed a major war, and the images were quite devastating. We've seen what kind of damage has been caused to infrastructure, especially, and it has taken years. You know, it takes years to build this kind of infrastructure, and I mean, seeing it getting destroyed. I mean, it's really a pain and a loss as well. So, what are some of the challenges you see? I mean, as your country is now recovering from this conflict, so what are the top 3 challenges, rather, I would say, you see for your country in terms of maybe, you know, gaining investor confidence back, or, you know, in regards to PPP projects as well? So what are the challenges you see?
Yeah, you're totally right. War has already brought too much destruction and sorrow to Ukraine. The whole economy of Ukraine have received tremendous amount of losses. It's very hard to count now, but approximately as of August, the indirect losses of the economy is near around $1 trillion. At the same time, the recovery needs for the destroyed assets is almost $200 billion. So, like the approximate calculations, it's really tremendous amount. Various types of infrastructures were damaged and destroyed, including schools, kindergartens, hospitals, maternity hospitals, housing units. It's important to understand that the reconstruction process will start immediately, because, for example, there is a lot of power units that are providing heating for the housing, and the winter is like 2 months ahead, and you know, winter is not an easy time in Ukraine. As of government, they see several main challenges for the reconstruction of the Ukrainian infrastructure. The first one is to attract all possible financial resources and use effective insurance tools and guarantees to provide some guarantees to the potential participants. The second one is we need to start strategic planning and creation of the new infrastructure for the future needs of the country, taking into account the needs of the state in defense and security, respective directions of the business development, new distribution of the population of the territory of Ukraine, modern principles of spatial and functional planning of the territories with more efficient use of land, energy, and resources. So we need to become more resilient, more secure, and more developed.
Exactly. Indeed, I do understand that.
So,
and
now it is really, for Ukraine, it's an opportunity to create a new generation infrastructure using modern technology that are resistant to climate change and provide protection and as well as possible aggression in future, and will open new opportunities for communal living and business development. So Ukraine's goal is to truly build back better, and as a concept that has now acquired a new and deeper meaning for Ukraine. It is important that the private sector will be a major player there. PPP can benefit from the effectiveness of the Ukraine reconstruction.
Yes.
For example, availability-based PPP projects are envisioned to become the key to post-war reconstruction of Ukraine, meaning that the construction would be privately funded, and the agreements may include long-term liabilities to reimburse investments from the private sector. The PPP mechanism will inspire confidence in donors that funds provided to Ukraine will be used for effective reconstruction and of critical services, as well as coverage of daily government expenditures. It will we hope that it will enable donors to participate in long-term development of the Ukraine infrastructure. Scaling the implementation of PPP in Ukraine would also allow to mobilize private sector for its doing.
Okay.
And when there is a private sector, there is new generation infrastructure, there is efficiency, there is flexibility, there is stability, innovations, and all of that come in with PPP. So, in order for private sector to have interest in such projects, a certain level of financial security must be guaranteed.
Yeah,
of course.
Indeed.
Private sector is always about money.
Exactly. That's true.
So one of the first we think that the first thing that will provide such guarantees is enabling of provision of grant support during the construction phase as a co-financing, and ensuring the effective demand availability payments that will made from we hope from European Union, Ukraine, Trust Fund, something like that, which is now in talks. Which can be a plan of Ukraine's recovery plan or trust funds of other countries. We have friends not only in EU as we find out. The second, but probably even the first, is a political risk insurance, because like, for example, MIGA of the World Bank or Israel have a big experience in it. So it's probably we need to, in order to be systematic, we need to establish some kind of this political risk insurance fund that will cover risks of terrorist attacks or military action renewal. Preferably, it should be internationally based, because in order to have to address the problems of the risk, and that will provide confidence that investments will be reimbursed under any circumstance. And also, we need to develop a system of guarantee for investors and creditors to ensure the flexibility of the process in order to put their interest first.
Okay, so I understand. I mean, there would certainly be many risks involved, as well as challenges, as Ukraine is looking towards recovering from this particular damage that has happened. Niko, now since before the war, I'm sure there would be some projects that were already on for PPP projects, for PPP model. However, after this particular impact that the country has seen, I'm sure the priorities of the government must have changed. So can you list some of the important projects or promising projects that you are focusing right now? I mean, that you can highlight to the investors, global investors for Ukraine. I mean, some of the PPP projects.
Okay, no, now we're not focusing solely on project, because we are trying to build new system, like new PPP system that is will address all the issues that I just mentioned.
Okay.
But okay, according to the latest data, what work we have ahead, according to latest data, around 311 bridges, around 25,000 kilometers of municipal roads, around were damaged were damaged due to war. So, for example, since the beginning of Russia war against Ukraine, around 15,000 apartments, 15,000, more than 100,000 private houses, 400 enterprises, 18 civilian airports, 800 kindergartens, 4,000 agriculture machinery, 2,000 shops, 700 cultural facilities, around 1,000 healthcare facilities, and others. So there was damage, destroyed and damaged, and the only one of the ways in this infrastructure that can be renovated can be used as a PPP. So, and including that existing commitments of the government to continue implementation of PPP projects, that's what I have mentioned in the beginning.
Yes.
Some of them already we have information that there is interest in this project. They, of course, we wait till the active stage will finish, because now it's impossible to try to prepare something, but more or less the interest is still there. Probably we will need to rethink it, recalibrate it, to try to think different things. So to sum it up, at the same, Ukraine will need to rebuild thousands of infrastructures in short time, completely. And Ukraine's recovery plan presented during the Ukraine recovery conference includes large-scale launch of PPP programs in social infrastructure. In parallel with the systematic reforms in relevant areas to rebuild destroyed facilities, social facilities, education, healthcare, culture, and sports, and that will be based on the availability-based PPP model.
I'm sure.
Economic recovery of the projects for the post-war period will be not less important. For example, projects for the development of the model cargo centers, triports, projects initiated as part of structural restoring on the western part to have better connected to the Europe. We hope it will be based on the clean, low carbon, and energy efficient approach technologies.
Okay. So, Niko, when so much has to be done, and the overall sentiment seems to be so full of risk, in these circumstances, how is the government? How is the PPP Agency of Ukraine trying to what I can say is restore investor confidence, or assure the investors with regards to investments in Ukraine? So what steps are you taking for that?
No, PPP Agency is the entity that supports public officials in the preparation of the PPP project. We don't have a lot of institutional power in regards to the policy, but we support in cooperation with Ministry of Economy and other stakeholders. We think that at first we have a very long and very hard road ahead, because the amount of work that should be done is really great. So then, in order to start this road, the government began, together with a group of experts, developed a draft recovery plan that was presented during the Ukraine recovery conference. That was in July, I think, in Lugano, Switzerland. There was a lot of big interest from international stakeholders, most of the international organizations, a lot of representatives of the country. big 7, big, maybe even big 20 countries, G20 countries. Naturally, this plan consists need to simplify PPP mechanism to do tremendous amount of damage to infrastructure. So, following these ideas, we held deputies of the parliament to initiate amendments to the current PPP and concession legislation. It's around very big, very complex amendments. Objectives of this amendment there are several main objectives. The first one is embracing the implementation of the availability-based projects, as such PPP projects are envisioned to become key to post-war restoration of Ukraine. We see that we should address all the issues that we have now seen during the work on the projects, to the active projects last year. So the second one is to simplify and partially standardize the preparation procedure for PPP projects in order to facilitate the reconstruction of Ukrainian infrastructure in post-war period. To allow the possibility of funding PPPs through grants by donors. Because now in our legislation doesn't support this approach, but we think that probably if somebody would like to provide a grant, we don't need, our legislation shouldn't be against it. The next one is simplification of the general PPP project preparation procedures at the state and local level. By full digitalization of the PPP procedures, including implementation of the electronic trading scheme, including system for PPP within line EU standards, in parallel with the full introduction of the source platform or other platforms that will be needed, because we don't have any exclusiveness for that. But for now, we're working with source, with full adaptation of the Ukrainian framework. And the last that work that we have been doing for the last several years, systematic refinement of the PPP mechanism based on the experience received during the preparation and implementation of the prior projects in all sectors that I said previously, because we have found that there is still some minor things that should be changed in order for the investors to have more support, more clear work during this process. And putting as much as we can the PPP law and concession law in line with the EU directive. We have started this work in 2019. Now we're going back, but there is still a lot of work to be done in this thing.
Okay, that's great to know, Niko. My last question to you, Niko, is a very important one, and I would like to understand from you. When this war was happening, we saw a lot of people, fleeing the country. I'm sure because of the threat that was looming on Ukraine, a lot of people left the country. And now when the recovery has to be made, I'm sure the PPP agency or many other work fronts would require skilled professionals, even PPP professionals. So how are you managing this particular challenge of, having skilled professionals to manage projects in such a risky environment? What are if you are taking any capacity building or skill development measures towards it? If you can highlight something on that.
It's a very hard question, unfortunately. As I can say, that the human capital probably is the most precious thing that we need for the development of the economy in any country. Considering the conflict and the amount, the tremendous amount of people have been killed and injured, and much more. So around 10 million have left Ukraine due to due to the war was near their home. Or there is no home for them.
Yes.
So in this situation, of course, the future need of the good human capital, effective, educated human capital in Ukraine will be great. And today, it's already very, very hard to find good workers in various types of work. Unfortunately, it's too early to address this issue. For now, we can only try to support the one we have.
Yes.
As a government entity, we of course have some guarantees. The government provides us with at least minimum or the same amount of the funds that are needed. The government, in this case, as a government entity organization, we have all the guarantees. But it's not only the problem. The problem is the price, because agency is only a center of excellence in the Ukrainian market. In order for such amount of projects to be effectively done, the agency is not enough. We can't cover all. We don't need to cover all. It's not the idea of the agency. We have started just before the war. We have started cooperation project with the Ministry of Regional Development, because there is in every region there is an agency of regional development that supports some investment projects, grant projects, and so on. So we were thinking about that before, that this such organizations, such agencies can be as a help in the regional level projects. Because now we see still that the regional projects will have the majority. Will have the majority of the
I understand.
work, due to our approach to decentralization, due to our view that that the government shouldn't take that are not needed. But it was before. How it will be now, I don't know. I think
I understand.
We hope for the better. We hope that it will soon end, and still we see that we have a great potential anyway.
That's true. I understand, Niko. I mean, see, there are challenges are many, and I'm sure you are doing a lot with regards to building back the country. I really appreciate your time, Niko. You took out some time and you shared your challenges with us. And as P3 World Council, we are committed to stand strong with Ukraine, offer all that we can as a platform that advocates for PPP projects globally. And we are always there. And certainly, any global support that we can gather for the country, we would always be open for that as well. Thank you so much, Niko, for the time that you spent with us. And let's be in touch. Certainly, I thank you so much for having this interview with me.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our experience, our views, and our